In this lesson, we're carrying on with IELTS Speaking Part 2, and we're going to cover the topic area, describe an activity, another one of our 6 main topic areas. Here are those 6 topic areas again, and describe an activity is the 5th one in this series of lessons. Let's look at this topic now. When you're asked to describe an activity, I think this is quite an easy topic, but we still have to prepare some good vocabulary for it so that we're ready. You'll be asked on the task card to describe what, where, who and why usually. What the activity is, where you do it, who you do it with, why you like it, that kind of thing. Let's look at some example questions that I've seen in the official IELTS materials or in real tests. One activity that you could be asked to describe, of course, is a hobby. Another, a sport, a game, something healthy that you do, and something new that you have done recently. My suggestion, as usual, is to prepare vocabulary themes, to take an easy word and then build some really good vocabulary around it, and that's what we're going to do in the rest of this lesson. And I'm going to choose just 2 of these activity examples, a sport and a game. I think that can cover all of the others: hobby, something healthy, something new. If we choose, for example, my sport is going to be swimming and my game is chess, we could even say that swimming is something new that I'm doing. Maybe I've just joined a new gym. So we can use those 2 descriptions that we're going to prepare now for any of these describe an activity questions. On to the vocabulary ideas then. This is the main, most important thing in these lessons, preparing good vocabulary. My first vocabulary preparation, my theme, is a healthy sport, and that's going to be swimming. Here are some of the words and phrases that I thought we could use to describe this healthy sport. Keep fit, stay in good condition, get in better shape, feel refreshed, rejuvenated, invigorated, gives me an energy boost, a good cardiovascular workout, build strength and endurance, a low-impact sport, helps to relieve stress, and relaxing helps to clear my mind. All good vocabulary related to the benefits of swimming being a healthy sport. Now on to an enjoyable game, chess. Here's the vocabulary I thought for that one. We could have some specific chess words. We know it's a board game. You have a chess set that you play with. You have pieces all with specific names: king, queen, bishop, etc. You can talk about taking the opponent's pieces. This is how you gradually win. And checkmate, the word that we use when you finally trap the person's king and you win the game. You can talk about honing your skills, thinking ahead, outthink, outwit the opponent. Concentration, it's a mental workout. It helps you to develop your problem solving, your strategy, and you learn from your mistakes or from your losses. That's the good vocabulary then. And the final step in preparation, as I've said before, is that I recommend that you think of examples or stories to demonstrate these vocabulary themes. For example, if we've said swimming is relaxing, let's demonstrate that with an example. Yesterday I had a lot on my mind, but as soon as I hit the water, all of my troubles disappeared. An example to show how swimming is relaxing and helps me to clear my mind. Another example, with chess, if I say I learned from my losses, here's an example of that. I had one friend who always beat me, but I copied his strategies when playing other people. So examples can help you to keep speaking, tell a story, and you can make it much longer than this one if you want, but it's a very good way to both demonstrate your vocabulary themes, but also to keep speaking and fill the 2 minutes. My advice is that you search on the internet for ideas about the hobbies or activities that you would choose. You can of course choose my hobbies if you want, my examples of swimming and chess. It's fine for you to choose those, or choose your own and look up ideas, vocabulary, themes of your own. So use my theme vocabulary, but also add your own. Finally then, you just need to practice, and I recommend that you record yourself, because then you can write down what you said, you can analyze it, and you can try to improve. You can check whether you used your good vocabulary, because one thing is to prepare the good vocabulary, but it's no good unless you actually use it. So you need to practice using the good vocabulary that you've prepared. And that's what I'm going to do now with an example question. Here's today's example question. Describe something healthy you enjoy doing. You should say what you do, where you do it, who you do it with, and explain why you think doing this is healthy. I'll start the 2 minutes now. I'm going to describe a really healthy activity that I do currently, which is swimming. I used to swim a lot when I was younger, but I've recently taken it up again, and I go a couple of times a week now. I go swimming in a gym that I joined, which has a nice swimming pool. I tried going to my local public pool, but it was too busy and you couldn't really swim up and down in lanes there. So I found a gym that has a pool, and it's usually quite empty, and I can have a lane to myself and swim up and down. As I said, I do this hobby or activity alone. I don't go there with anyone. It's a solitary sport, really, and I'm doing it for my own health reasons. Obviously, of course, there are other people in the pool when I'm there. Sometimes you have to share a lane with another person or a couple of people, but basically I'm in there focused on my own, concentrating on my own swimming stroke and technique, and trying to improve my endurance and stamina as well. And the reason I think this is a healthy sport, well, I think it's widely accepted that swimming is really healthy. It's a good all-over body workout. It's great cardiovascular exercise. It's a low-impact sport, so you're not expected to get any injuries as you might do if you're running, where there's impact on the joints. With swimming, you don't have that. So I think it's really good for the body, but it's also good for the mind. When I get into the swimming pool, as soon as I hit the water, it clears my mind. I'm focused only on one thing, which is my stroke, my technique, the breathing. It makes you think about your breathing as well, which is good. And I think it rejuvenates and reinvigorates you to be in the water. It's a really relaxing experience. That was 2 minutes, so I've stopped it there. And I tried to use as much of the good vocabulary as I could. You can check that by downloading the attached worksheet. You'll see the script for that description that I've just done, and you'll also see another script for a description of the game of chess. I did that previously on my blog, so I've attached a written version of that one. In the next lesson, we'll do something similar for the topic Describe Your Favourites. This is the last lesson in the series of lessons that I've been making for IELTS Speaking Part 2. In this lesson, we'll be looking at the last of the 6 main topic areas, Describe Your Favourites. For this topic area, I've seen questions in the real test or in the official IELTS books, such as describe your favourite film or TV programme, your favourite song or piece of music, your favourite book, your favourite website, and your favourite advertisement. So we should be ready for these possible tasks. And what we're going to do, as usual, is prepare vocabulary for these areas. But also, because this is the last topic, we can use ideas from some other topics that we've already prepared. You'll see how I do that and how I suggest that you do that in a moment. Any task card for this Describe Your Favourite topic area will give you the question words as usual. What, when, where, who, how, why. What is your favourite book, for example? When did you first read it? Where did you find this book? Who told you about it? How do you know about it, or how long have you had this book, and why do you like it? The task cards always give you some bullet points with question words like this to help you structure your answer. And we're going to prepare mainly the what and the why. I think those are the two easiest areas to prepare, because the what is your favourite book or film or website, and the why, you can prepare your opinions, why you like that book, website or film, etc. Let's look at the what and the why for these topic areas so that you can see what I mean. If we take the what first, for a film, TV programme or book, what is it you'll tell the story? Tell the story of what happens in this film or TV programme or book. On the other hand, if we're looking at a song, you might give information about the artist, the style, the instruments. For a website, I think you'll talk about the features of this website, what it does. And for an advertisement, you can talk about the product being advertised and perhaps the story, what happens in this advertisement. Then looking at the why do you like this? Why is it your favourite? For the film, TV programme or book, you'll talk about your feelings, why you like this film, how it made you feel. If you're preparing for a song, again, you can talk about your feelings or emotions. For a website, you can talk about how you use it. And the advertisement, you can give your opinions on this advertisement and the effect it had on you or the effect you think it has on other people. Okay, now let's start preparing vocabulary for some of these topics. And as I said a moment ago, we can also use ideas from the previous topics that we've already prepared. I'll show you how I would do that now, starting with the favourite advertisement question. What's your favourite advertisement that you've seen on the television or in the street, etc.? For this, I think I would use ideas from the watch description that I did in Lesson 5. Lesson 5 was describing an object, and I described a watch that I would like to own. And we can use these ideas because there could be an advertisement for this watch. Here's some of the ideas that we had in that lesson. I chose to describe a smartwatch, for example, the Apple Watch, and you can talk about the advertisement in the same way. You can talk about how this watch looks fantastic because it synchronizes with your phone or your computer. You can use contacts, photos and emails on this watch. You can store music, receive notifications, search the web. It responds to voice commands. You can track your exercise goals, and it's also a nice fashion accessory. It looks stunning. You could use some of this vocabulary at least from that lesson in your description of an advertisement. I've seen adverts for the Apple Watch, for example, and for other smartwatches, and I'm sure we could use some of this vocabulary because the advertisements do show the features of these watches. For another example, let's look at the song question. Describe your favourite song or piece of music. I would use ideas from the concert description that I gave in Lesson 6. Lesson 6 was about describing an event, and one of the events that I prepared for and did an example answer for was a description of a concert. And here are some of the ideas, and I've added to them. So for my concert description, I was talking about some film soundtracks being played. For example, we could take the just one soundtrack. We could say that the James Bond soundtrack, the James Bond theme music, is one of my favourite songs. And I could talk about the orchestra that plays this piece of music, the instruments, the fact that it's very popular or well known. It's immediately recognizable. This music, you recognize it straight away and link it with the film. If you've ever seen a James Bond film, you would know exactly what I'm talking about. The music is very recognizable. The music creates expectation, and we know we're going to be watching an adventure, mystery or suspense film. The music gives that feeling. It's exciting, dramatic, powerful. So what I've done there is I've taken some of the ideas from my concert description, where I was talking about a concert with an orchestra that played film soundtracks. I've taken one of them and added a few extra ideas for this James Bond music. And that links nicely in with the next topic area, the film. Why not choose James Bond as the favourite film? You don't have to. This is just my advice, my idea. You will choose your favourite film. If you don't want to choose mine, that's completely fine. I'm just showing you how you can connect the topics and use ideas from different ones and adapt them. Look how I adapt what I've just prepared for the music one for the film topic. Now, and here are some ideas. The film is or was released. You could talk about the plot, which means the story. You could talk about the genre, which means the type, the style of film. Is it an action film, a drama, a thriller, etc.? You can talk about the cast. That means the people in the film, the actors, the roles, the characters. You can describe the scenes in the film, the locations, the special effects. We can say some opinions now. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was spectacular, entertaining. There were great performances by the actors. I was on the edge of my seat. That means very excited. I was enthralled, again, meaning really excited when watching this film. And I've done a description of this already, which I will include on the worksheet next to or below this lesson. Moving on to the next topic, the website. I would choose something easy like Facebook, something that you use, a social networking website. Maybe you don't use Facebook, maybe you use a different one, but the vocabulary will be the same. I think this is really easy to describe. So here are some good ideas for that description. It's a social networking website. You can keep in contact with friends, find people you've lost touch with, post messages, write status updates, upload photos and videos, post links to other websites, check your news feed, find people with shared interests, and connect with like-minded people. Some good vocabulary there, very specific vocabulary for this kind of social networking website. Finally, here's some ideas for the book description. You could choose a novel, a story, or something that's non-fiction, that's not a story. It could be even a textbook that you've used in your subject. So if you've just been studying something, for example, you're a history student, you might have just read a history book, you could use that. But here are some ideas anyway. If we're choosing a novel, you can talk about the storyline, the plot, the genre. It's very similar to a film description. You could talk about the author, the characters. It was entertaining, enthralling. I couldn't put it down. This is a nice phrase we use for books that you must keep reading because it's so interesting. Of course, again, you could connect this with the film topic. You could even choose a James Bond novel if you wanted to and describe that and just prepare one description for the book and the film. Many films are also books, so it might be a good idea to choose one that is both. On the other hand, we could choose a non-fiction book, a textbook even, and we could talk about the topic, the field, the subject. We could say it was very informative, fascinating, inspiring. You could talk about what you learnt about, what you found out about the subject, and say maybe it opened my mind to something. All about what you learnt from this non-fiction book. So those are my suggestions for vocabulary and ideas for these different favourites. You can, of course, search on the internet for ideas about your favourites. You might not have the same favourites as me, or you might not want to choose the same as me. If I were you, I would try to use the ideas that I've given you. Even if you're choosing a different subject, a different book or film, for example, try to use some of the vocabulary that I've given you. Maybe you can practice using my vocabulary and adding to it. So practice. Record yourself and try to improve your descriptions as usual. When you've recorded yourself, you can write down what you said, you can look at it, decide whether it's good enough. Could you add any more good vocabulary? The key to this, remember, is vocabulary. We're trying to include as many good words, as many good ideas as we can to impress the examiner and to give a really detailed description. Now let's look at some example questions, and I'll try to give some sample answers for you to see how I use the vocabulary that we've just prepared. We'll start with this question. Describe a song or piece of music that you like. You should say what type of music it is, where you first heard it, who performs it, and explain why you like this song or piece of music. Okay, I'm going to start the 2 minutes now. I'm going to describe one of my favourite pieces of music, which is the theme music from the James Bond films. This is the soundtrack that begins every one of these James Bond films, and you hear the instruments straight away. It's an instrumental piece of music. There's no singing, there are no lyrics. It's just orchestra with electric guitar, and it begins every one of the James Bond films. So the first time I heard this soundtrack was probably when I was a child and I watched my first ever James Bond film on television, and I was immediately struck by the music, how impressive it was, and how it gets you excited before the film's even begun. The spectacular opening sequences that always begin any James Bond film, matched with this iconic music, are really exciting and memorable. This is performed obviously by an orchestra, but as I said, it incorporates electric guitar and some drums as well. So it's a mix of popular and classical, I'd say. I'm not sure who composed it, but I imagine any orchestra can play it. The reason I like this music then is because of the expectation it creates at the beginning of a James Bond film. You know that you're about to watch something special when you hear the first few notes of this soundtrack, of the theme music. And it creates an expectation of adventure, mystery, excitement. I think it's really dramatic and powerful to hear this music at the beginning of the film, and they always match it with a spectacular opening sequence. And I think you're already on the edge of your seat before the film's even begun, because it's a really special beginning to hear this music before the film gets going. Right, I've had to stop there. That was 2 minutes. I tried to use as much of the prepared vocabulary as I could, and you can check that on the worksheet attached below this lesson. Now let's try one more example question. Here it is. Describe a book that you enjoyed reading. You should say what the book was about, how you found out about it, why you chose to read it, and explain why you enjoyed reading this book. I'll start the 2 minutes now. I'm going to describe a book that I really enjoyed reading recently. The name of the book was Mindset. It's a non-fiction book, and the author is called Carol Dweck, or Dweck. I'm not sure how to pronounce her surname properly, but she's a psychology professor, and so the topic of this book was related to personality and development and motivation. In particular, she was writing about people's own personal views regarding ability. Some people, according to this author, believe that ability is innate, you're born with it, you have a talent that you can't change. Other people, on the other hand, believe that abilities can be improved through gradual hard work. And this is the area of personality that she's looking at. So she divides the two types of people into people with a fixed mindset and other people with a growth mindset. That's why the name of the book is Mindset. So these two mindsets are about whether you believe that our traits are fixed, or whether, on the other hand, you think that we can grow and develop our talents through hard work. I found out about the book from a friend of mine who'd read it, who recommended it, said it was really interesting, and
I chose to read it because I thought, well, this could help me with my job, with my own aims or goals in life, and I'm interested in that kind of area, psychology anyway. And I really enjoyed reading the book because it did open my eyes to motivation and people's growth and development. I found it really informative, fascinating, and even inspiring to see how we can improve ourselves. And that was exactly 2 minutes again. I've had to stop there. Again, you can check the worksheet to see how well I did with that and see what good vocabulary I used. I hope this lesson has given you some good ideas and some good vocabulary for describing your favourites. Remember, you don't have to choose the same as me, but it will help you if you can choose something similar at least, so that you can use the good vocabulary that I've given you in this lesson. Do some more research to find good ideas for your own favourites and add them to mine. Remember to download the attached worksheet to see the scripts of the answers that I've just given.